Okay, I'd like to thank you to, I guess this might be part 7 of, or part 6 it says here, of Detroit Greek and Latin's exposition of the Agricola of Tacitus. And so without any ado, let's bring up the screen and get to work. Okay. Okay. So we left off really at the end of this passage, at the end of this, I could say, section of the work. But so let's just finish this off. 17. Sed ubi cum cetero urbe Vespasianus et Britanniam recuperavit magni duces egregii exequitus minuta postium spes. So this is pretty straightforward, you know, but once or when, along with the rest of the world, the known world, the empire, I mean the Roman Empire, imagining itself as being constituting the world, I suppose, with the rest of the civilized Roman world, cum cetera orbe, Vespasius also recuperated Britain, okay, recovered Britain. Then we had 3 things: magni duces, egregii exequitus, and minuta postium spes. So that's pretty straightforward. That was all followed by a series of great generals, great armies, and a lessening, you know, a diminished hope of the enemy. Okay?
I have a question. So, magni duces egregii exercitus, are those all nominatives, or how? What are those?
Yeah, those are all nominatives.
Okay.
Yep. All nominatives. Okay? Good question. Mm-hmm. Good question. I did something I didn't want to do. Yeah, but good question. Yeah, they're all nominatives and just these simple appositions that he likes so much. Mm-hmm. Okay? And, okay, et terrorem statim intulit Petilius Cerialis brigantum civitatem quae numerosissima provinciae totius perhibetur ad gressus. So, our subject is Petilius Cerialis, okay? So, immediately, he basically brought on terror, okay? So he's the first of these magni duces. He basically, you know, brought on a reign of terror, okay? Aggressus, attacking, okay, the city or the settlement of the Brigantians, quae numerosa provinciae totius perhibetur, which is reported to be the, you know, most highly populated, the most, okay, settlement of the whole province. So as far as the Civitas here, what exactly in the way of physical structure they're talking about? You know, do we want city? Do we want people? You know, I'm not sure what civitatem actually means in this context. I usually just translate it. I mean, I usually translate it the way I translate Paulus, by political community, but obviously you really can't do that here. So it's whether this is, you know, if you're asking what, I'm asking what the physical infrastructure of the civitatem brigantum was, okay? But, you know, that's neither here nor there. We can just go on.
Yeah, it would have to be the whole area. The Brigantes were up.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Paul, because of what follows. Because of the description that follows. So it has to be almost the people, the Brigantian, you know, nation. It has to be almost. Multa prolia et aliquando non incruenta. So there were many battles, and quite a few, finally, in the final event were pretty bloody, non incruenta, okay? And magnam partem brigantum aut victoria, okay, aut victoria amplexus est aut bello. So amplexus is a deponent. So um, he embraced the greater part of the Brigantum nation territory, either with victory or at least with war. So even if he didn't enact complete subjugation, he nevertheless brought a lot of destruction. Okay? And we're talking, I mean, even though Tacitus is only giving us a sentence for these things, I mean, we're talking like several years here. Petilius Carialis was the military commander from 71 to 74. So he's describing a 3-year period of what went on here. So we're definitely talking about, we're not talking about taking a city. We're talking about conquering a whole people. Okay? And so, and Carialis, so that's our nominative, okay? And Carialis indeed obruisset, okay, this is pluperfect subjunctive contrary to fact. He would have, you know, buried his accomplishments, would have buried in, you know, obscurity the curam et famam, you know, and this is interesting because cura, we've seen him use that for administration, and fama is obviously, you know, the fame, the legacy that went with that administration. So curam famamque is a Hindaides of sort for, you know, the legacy. He would have buried, you know, in oblivion, the legacy of any other successor. Remember what I want to say here, Alterius. I mean, I hadn't thought about it until right now. I mean, of any other successor, let's just leave it there. I don't want to complicate things, so that slows us down. Okay? And then we don't have any ascendaton. We have ascendaton, so that usually is a sign of but, subiit sustenuitque molem Julius Frontius. But Julius Frontis followed him and took on the challenge, sustained the challenge, sustenuit the molem, you know, took up the task of following in this guy's footsteps, which was no slight task. So the sustenuit que molem is an interesting expression, I thought. Okay? And then we get a couple of appositions. Vir Magnus, okay? And then he quantifies that. Quantum licebat, to the degree that it was allowed. Remember, licet is usually impersonal. To the degree that it was allowed, he was a great man. And subegit, he subjugated armies by arms, the strong validam at pugnacem silurum gentem. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. You know, the strong and pugnacious race of the Siluri. Okay? And he has this trailing participial phrase, you know, having overcome, okay, super quoque, on top of virtutem hostium, he overcame, on top of the virtue of the enemy, he overcame quoque as well the difficulties of the topology, locorum difficultates. Okay? So that actually was quite simple. I'm going to just insert a page break just to give Paul a good, clean thing to read. Okay? So Paul, why don't you do your thing for us?
Sed ubicum cetero orbe Vespasianus et Britanniam recuperavit, magni duces egregii exercitus minuta hostium spes, et terrorum statim intulit Petilius Carialis, brigantum civitatem, quae numerosissima provinciae totius petibetur aggressus. Multa proelia et aliquando non incruenta, magnamque brigantem partem, aut victoria amplexus est, aut bello, et cerialis quid. Sorry, I lost the text here.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, the text keeps going between Justin and the text. Right now I have Justin.
Oh, really? That's weird. It shouldn't be doing that. I'm going to mute Justin then. Wait, okay.
But that's been going on. That's been going on. Justin's been coming into the picture, and the text has been going away frequently so far.
Oh, really? Someone? Yeah, I wish someone had alerted me. Let me just try this again. I'm not sure why that's happening. God, gee, why would that be happening now? Okay, I'm just going to ask everyone to mute and to put your questions in the chat box. Okay. Okay. That's going to be best. Okay. Now, what are you seeing now, Paul?
Yeah, well, I see the text again. I mean, towards the end of 17.
Okay, good. Okay, so let me go back. Let me go back to the text. And sorry. Okay, so okay, good. So you need to go back up to.
Yeah, et cerialis quidem alterius successoris curam famamque obruisset. Sub it sustinuitque molem Julius Frontinus, vir magnus quantum licebat, validanque et pugnacem silurum gentem armi subegit, super virtutem hostium locorum quoque difficultates eluctatus.
Okay. So with 18, it continues. Hunc Britanniae statum, has bellorum vices, media jam a state transgressus Agricola invenit. Okay? Cum et milites velut omissa expeditione ad securitatem et hostes ad occasionem veterunt. So this might be good enough actually to break up. So okay. So Agricola invenit. So Agricola found that this was a state of Britain, and that these were the back and forths of war. You know, this is how the battles, the vicissitudes of war had gone. Okay, and now we get ablative of time when media jam aestate was, right midsummer. Okay, when he arrived, when he came across the channel. Okay, so that's what he found. Having come across the channel midsummer, this is what he found, the state we just described. Okay, so come a situation where at milites on the one hand, at hostes on the other, were intent upon, were looking to, okay, so where the soldiers, as if the time for fighting had been lost, the season had passed, they were looking towards just security, buckling down and letting things be all right, while the enemy were looking to ad occasionem, towards their next opportunity to maybe revolt. Okay? Okay? So, Ordovicum civitas, haud multe ante eventum eius, alam infinibus suis agentem propre universum ulterior. So, we have, our subject here is the civitas Ordovicum. So, the people of the Ordovici, I'm not sure how we actually call them, but this group of people, okay, haud multo, not very long before, not very much before adventem eius, he arrived, just before his arrival, okay, haud multo, and haud is just a fancy word for not, known. Haud multo ante adventem eius, okay, they had ground into the dirt, they had destroyed universum, pretty much completely. And what did they destroy? Oh, alam infinibus suis agentem, a wing of cavalry that was at work inside of their borders. They had nearly completely destroyed. So, Ordovicum civitas haud multo ante aventum eius, alam infinibus suis agentem propria universum obtrierat. Okay? And eo que initio erecta provincia. Okay? With this beginning, the whole province, or the province, was excited, was on the alert. They thought, oh, okay, this is interesting. Okay, et quibus bellum volentibus erat. Now this is a very interesting construction here. This is a direct imitation of a Greek construction, where you have a verb of sum with a dative. So there was, to those who were wishing for war. And I'll put in the comment box beneath this the reference to Smythe. But he's self-consciously imitating this Greek construction here. There was, to people wanting to those who wanted war, okay? And my commentary said that these were historical infinitives. Okay? Probare exemplum, they approved or were happy to see the example of their countrymen standing up to the Romans. Okay, ac, almost but, at the same time, recentis legati animum operiri. So they were just operiri, they were just watching what would be the spirit, waiting to see, kind of wait and see what was the spirit of the new arriving commander. So they're all like nodding their heads. What a good thing this is that the Roman cavalry got slaughtered. But none of them really want to put their necks on the line yet until they've waited to see what the animum of the recentis legati, i.e. Agricola, is going to be. Now, this next bit is quite difficult, so it might take a little bit of doing. Okay. Cum, and I think the cum here is just taken as then, because then and when, just then at that point, Agricola, and we can go, and it might just help if we just cut right to the chase and jump to the very, very end of this. Agricola, there it is, okay. Agricola decided, statuit, ob ira obiam discrimini, okay, to go straight in the face of the danger. I mean, a disagreement is kind of like a crisis, a thing that could go one way or another. So basically, he decided to grab the bull by the horns. And then we have this long quam phrase that begins here, okay, which is the real tricky thing, okay, and so. Yes, discrimini is dative, Justin. Thank you. I'm glad that Galaxy the chat's working.
Thank you.
And the obium triggers that dative. I mean, one really should look at that section in Smythe where they talk, in Gildersleeve, where he lists those prepositional suffixes that trigger the dative. Because once you have those as a list in your mind, it will answer that question quite easily and quickly. Okay, you'll be on the lookout for them. Okay, so you have this quam. So quam, three things: quam transvecta itas. And this transvecta is a little bit of a strange word, because usually you would expect transacta, but with the summer most gone, pretty much already gone, okay. Sparsi per provinciam numeri, with troops, but these are not like official troops. These are battalions, but these are troops, sparsely spread out across the province. The forces haven't really been mustered for a real campaign, and presumpta ad militem illius ani quies. Okay, a quiet having been presumed among the soldiers, among the soldiers, the quiet of this year, of that year, they just take it for granted. Okay, we're not going to do anything this summer because it's a change of commanders. Okay, so you have these three things, and that's pretty straightforward. Okay, but now it gets a little crazy. Okay, because these tarda et contraria bellum in cohorturo et plerisque custodiri suspecta potius videbatur ire obriam discriminus statuent. Okay, we already did that, so let's just put that aside. Okay, so he mentions these three things. The summer's almost gone. The troops are spread out, and the whole army's just expecting that this year the season's going to pass quiet. Okay, and those three things, which are masculine and feminine subjects, are picked up by these two accusative, these two nominative neuter plurals, and these are the predicates. They were. Have to supply errant. They were for someone about to begin a war. For one in cohorturo, okay, that's a future participle. For one who was about to begin a war, they were reasons for delay and arguments against beginning a war. The state in which he found things. Then you have this kind of strange and plerisque, to most people, to the majority of folks, and to the majority of folks, potius videbatur. It seemed preferable just to custodire suspecta, that suspect places be guarded, that they just kind of take a defensive posture and look out for suspect places. Okay. Now, while all that's going on, although there were these three things, which were reasons for delay and arguments against for someone who was about to begin a war, and even though the majority of his advisors thought it best, potius videbatur, seemed best to them, to just watch out, be on the defensive, and custodire suspecta, he then, cum Agricola, ire obriam discriminus statuit. Okay? So that's kind of tricky, and I ultimately decided myself reading this that I didn't like that comma, and that almost it'd be clearer if you had almost like Greek, if you had the Greek here almost as if that et were doing the job of men and de, and then you put a de here. Okay? Okay? Even though, on the one hand, to someone about to begin a war, these were reasons for delay and contraria. But on the other hand, to those who were, to the majority of his advisors, it seemed better to just guard that the suspect places be guarded. So I almost took this because of the strong contrast between the two datas, because both incohaturo and pluralisque are datas, okay? But the incohaturo is dependent upon this erat. It was for the dative with respect. With respect to someone about to begin a war, they were contrary things, but this dative of the pluralisque is dependent on the videbatur. But on the other hand, it seemed that it was better, more advisable to just guard the suspect places. So despite all that, although Agricola just decided to grab the bull by the horns. Okay? So I thought that was a little tricky. Okay? Anyone have any questions about that? Okay, I'll assume not. Okay. So he grabs the bull by the horn, and what does he do? Okay? So contractis legioni vexilliis, and these are the troops earlier, these same guys who he said, the numeri, who were scattered all over, who were sparsi, okay? So having pulled together the, vexilliis, I forget what that is, but the units of the legions, okay? And at modicum auxiliarum manu, and with a small band, with a reasonable band, not really huge, a reasonable force of auxiliaries, and these auxiliaries would have been native fighters, as we'll see in a second. Okay? Quia in aequum de gradi or divices non audebat, because the Ordiviki did not dare to come down de gradi in aequum, into the flat territory, into the flatland to fight. Okay? Erexit Acium. That means Erexit Acium means he led his forces uphill. Okay, it's kind of a technical expression. Okay, because they did not dare to come down to the flats, and you have to understand that these guys lived in a mountainous territory, so they could kind of go to their high places and just wait out, adopt a defensive posture. But since they did not dare to come down in aequum, okay, ipsa ante agmen, okay, and ipsa here just means Agricola himself, the commander, at the head of the marching, charging army. So he's doing a hardcore Julius Caesar marching right at the head of the army, leading the charge of the troops. Okay, and we get this wonderful quo. Okay, so that, or by which fact, okay, par animus, there was equal bravery to the rest of the fighters, okay, and simile periculo, I'm taking it just to be like an ablative of circumstance, given the communal danger, in the midst of the communal danger. I'm starting to see, as I was reading today, I was starting to think how we're all very familiar with the ablative of time when, but I almost am seeing that Tacitus uses that almost as the ablative of the circumstance within which, okay, because remember we have the ablative of time when and the ablative of time within which, within which, time during which and within which, and I think he does the same thing with circumstance. So amid this common, and similes just for commune, amid this common danger, so that to all the rest of the troops there would be equal bravery, he himself put himself at the head of the charge and erexit Acium, and led the force is uphill. Okay? And then we get Caesa que propria universa gente. So pretty much the whole people, the whole race of these folks, Caesa, from Kaido, was wiped out, was slaughtered. Okay? And then this little thing gave me a little trouble. This was a little bit different. This was difficult too. Okay, so non ignoris extendum fami. Okay, yeah, I should do that. Okay, so here again, Justin, is one of these cases where you have to be watching out for that prefix in, because that is what's generating this dative. Okay, so non ignoris, and this is literally like a verb of knowing. So not ignorant of the fact that, and then so here's our gerundive, our gerund in the accusative, non ignoris, and I guess it's almost essa. Oh, I'm still doing Greek. Essa. Known, not ignorant that in standi. That you have to, once you've got a good reputation, you've got to capitalize on it. You just don't sit on your hands. You've got to put the pedal to the metal. That his good, he'd already, by this aggressive attack under not so great conditions, he'd already put fear of the new commander into the troops. So this was no time at all to take the pedal off the metal. So not non ignoris that fame ought to be stepped upon, that you have to back up a good start with a strong finish. So that's really kind of tricky. That I thought was very tricky. Okay, and not ignorant of the fact that prima cassiset, okay? And cassiset is, Tacitus likes to use the simple form of a verb for a compound. So knowing that fruit, just as the first things had gone, so futurus esse, there was going to be terror to the rest of the Britons. So because this first campaign has gone so well, he knew that there would be terror for the rest of them. Okay? And so, having Caesa quod propria universa gente, non ignoris instandum esse, non ignoris instandum fami, ac prut prima cassiset, errorum ceteris fora, monam insulam. And let's just forget this relative clause here for a second. Monam insulam redigere impotestatum animo intendit. He took it in mind. He had as the intention inside of his mind, redigere impotestatum, to bring the island of Mona, to reduce it to a state of, subjugation to Rome. Okay? And then we just simply get this backward looking to the earlier part of the narrative. Okay? The island of Monum, from the possession of which, from the occupation of which, quies possessione, okay? From the possession of which, above I related that Paulinus had been revocatum, had been recalled, and then this is the reason, rebellione totius Britanniae, because of a rebellion of the whole island. Okay? Sed ut in subitis conciliis nalves de erat. Okay, and this is cool. Okay, so I mean, when Caesar was about to land in Gaul, if anyone remembers from the Gallic Wars, he had his troops building boats all year long. All winter long, and repairing boats to get ready for the invasion, the amphibious assault. Whereas, so here we go, ut in subitis conciliis, as happens in plans that are just come up, that you come up with right after, out of nowhere, nowadays they around. They didn't really have the boats to get across to the island, okay? But, again, we have no ascendantum, but ratio et constantia ducis transvexit. Okay, and this is just really great, okay? The know-how and the stubbornness of the commander carried the army across. I like that. Ratio constantia duxit transvexit. Okay? I ain't got no boats. Well, no problem there. Because what did he do? Okay. De positis omnibus sarcinis, putting aside all the luggage, okay, putting all the baggage aside, okay, he takes lectissimos auxiliarum. He takes the select group of auxiliary troops, and these are not Romans. These are Britons who are fighting for the Romans. Because watch how cool this is. What he takes them. He says, okay, to whom quibus nota vada et patrius nandi usus. To whom the waters or the shallows are known, and to whom et patrius nandi usus. And there was experience of swimming. They knew how to swim because their fathers all swam. Et patrius nandi usus. So nandi is obviously a genitive of gerund. Nara to swim. Okay? So he took these guys who could swim and who knew what the waters were like. Okay? And they knew swimming. Not only did they know swimming, but they knew a way of swimming, quote, by which at the same time they themselves and their arms and even horses could be, guided across. Quo simo seque et arma et equos regunt. Okay? And so, ita repenta immiset. So he sent those guys so quickly, ita ut, so quickly that the enemy were simply thunderstruck. Okay? And why were they thunderstruck? Because they had been. Now this is unlike him. Well, I haven't read enough fast to say what's unlike him, so I take that back. But qui classem, qui navis, qui mare expectabat, who were expecting a fleet, who were expecting ships, who were expecting a sea attack. This huge armada to come. Okay. So they believed that nihil arduum aut invictum, that nothing was either hard or invincible. Okay? And here we get this dative. They believed that nothing was hard or invincible to persons coming thus to war. Sic ad bellum venientibus. So this is the dative. They believe that nothing was hard or invincible to persons who would come to war in this manner. Sic venientibus ad bellum. Okay? So let's just stop right there, because that's quite a bit for Paul to read. And Paul, can you read this even the way I've broken it up?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so Let me go to the top. Is this where we're starting? Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Hunc Britanniae statum, haspelorum vices media iamae stata transgressus Agricola invenit, cum et milites velut omissa expeditione ad securitatem, et hostes ad occasionem verterentur. Orloicum civitas haud multo ante adventum eos alam infinibus suis agentem propter universam altriurat, eoque nitio erecta provincia. Et quibus bellum volentibus erat probare exemplum ac recentes legati animum operiri, cum Agricola, quamquam transvecta aestas, sparsi per provinciam numeri, praesumta apud militem Ilius anni quies, tarda et contraria bellum incohaturo et perisque custodiri suspecta potius videbatur, ira aviam discrimini statuit, contractisque legionem vexilis, et modica auxiliorum manu, quia in aequum degredi orloices non audebant, ipsa ante agmen, quo cateris par animus simili periculo esset, e rexit aciem. Caesaque proprio universa gente, non ignaris instandum famae, ac provit prima cassisent, terrorum cateris fora, monam insulam, quius possessione revocatum Paulinum rebellione totius Britanniae supra memoravi, redigere in potestatem animo intendit. Sed ut in subitis conciliis naves deerant, ratio et constantiae ducis transvexit. De positis omnibus sarcinis lectissimos auxiliarium, quibus nota vada et patrias nandi usus, quo simul sequet armat equos regunt, ita repente in misit, ut ob stupefacti hostes, qui classem, qui navis, qui mare expectabant, nihil arduum aut invictum crediderent. Sic ad bellum venientibus.
Okay, very good. So, ita petita paca et dedita insula, clarus et magnus haberi agricola. Okay, so, okay. Puipe qui, ingrediendi provinciam, quo tempus alii per ostentationem et officiorum ambitum transigat, labor et periculum placuisset. Okay, so pedita paca et dedita insula. That's pretty straightforward. Just our absolutes to open. Okay, peace having been sought and the island having surrendered. Okay, Agricola haberi. Now habeo in the passive has just a sense to be considered or to be viewed as. So Agricola was considered this brilliant and great man. Okay, haberi. So I guess this is just a straightforward historical infinitive. And quibiqui is equivalent to is enim, okay, and even to almost a quote on account of the fact that, but as one who, quibiqui, okay, okay, but you have to go down to the verb to make this work. Labor et periculum placuisset, and we all know that placeo takes the dative. Okay, so as one to whom labor and danger was pleasing, were pleasing to him, to whom, and then we get this description of to whom ingredienti provinciam, just when he arrived, to him arriving in the province, okay, quo tempus alii per ostentationem et officiorum ambitum transigat, a time which other commanders usually would transigat, would spend in showing themselves off and in going around, you know, having people shake their hand and kiss the ring, okay? Officiorum ambitum. So this officiorum is almost the duty of the subordinates, but they're going around the officer, the new commander would just go around to introduce himself to everybody and to, you know, get himself flattered by them and whatever they would do for him upon his arrival. Okay, so quo tempus alii per ostentatione et officiorum ambitum transigat. You know, the time that other commanders would have spent doing that, it pleased him to spend, you know, with labor and danger. You know, and that was, you know, the biggest part of why he was considered, you know, so Magnus Ac Claris. Okay, and then a wonderful character sketch here. So neck. Okay, is there another neck? Okay, neck. Nay. Okay, neck. Okay, so you got neck. Then you got nay. And then you got said. So, and then you've got this really strange thing at the end, which is really cool. Aestimantibus. Okay, so you've got neck. You've got nay. So, and then you've got the alternative. So neither. Okay, Agricola. Agricola. So Agricola is nominative. Usus. Okay. And utor always takes the ablative, as everyone knows. Okay, so Agricola, neither using the prosperitate rerum, the fact that things had gone so well in vanitatem, for purposes of mere show and vanity. Okay, and also this, and the neck even applies. So nor did. Okay, let me just back up for 1 second, because the usus, the neck really goes with vocabat. Okay, so neither did he call victos continuusa, and victos continuusa victos is an infinitive with its object forming really just a noun. So he didn't call just containing, okay, I'll get to that in a second, Justin. Nor did he call just containing the defeated campaigning and victory. He didn't call, and I guess, okay. So Justin's asked, would out act as nor with nec? Nec, okay, let me just read to myself, see what's going on. Nec Agricola, prosperitate rerum, in vanitatis usus, expectatio victoria vocabit rictos condenensle. I don't think that you need the nec to really go with the usus. He just didn't call, you know, he didn't move from a real, he didn't move from having accomplished a real victory in the stuff that was just described ahead of time. I mean, just before, you know, he didn't use this as a basis for calling his subsequent actions, which were just holding down the defeated, calling those expeditions and victories as well. Okay? Nor, quidem, ne, laureatis quidem gesta prosecutus est. Okay? Nor did he promote or follow up his deeds, laureatus, and you have to supply Lateris. Okay, because when the commander sent back notice of a victory to Rome, it would be in a letter that was wrapped in, a scroll that was tied up with laurel branches. Okay, so he didn't even follow up his deeds with laurel-wrapped dispatches, we could say. Okay, said, okay, but ipsa, and this of course is ablative, ipsa, okay, so by means of dissimulation of fame, he increased his fame. Okay, so I mean, dissimulo is always just to pretend not. So by the very fact of pretending that he hadn't done anything worth talking about, he famam auxit. He increased him being talked about. Now this is really cool what he does here. So the aeschemantibus is a ablative absolute without a subject express, okay? And it's kind of a free-floating general ablative absolute. So let's just make it simple by going something like wearies, or wearies, and while men were guessing, okay, but he doesn't give you a subject. He just says, estimatibus, while people were guessing, and then this is direct, indirect question, okay, but this is really, really cool what he's doing with this ablative here. I mean, it's nothing really special, but you have to think about it for it, okay? Because quanta futuri spe tam magna tacuisset. So, with what hope of the future he had been quiet about such great things. I mean, he's not talking about the fact that he's, done what these great things they've done, so they're asking, wow, what must he be expecting he's going to do? Okay, so with people guessing, quanta futuri spe tam magna tacuisset. With what aestamantibus, quanta futuri spe, with what hope of the future? So you almost have to take that to be like an ablative of manner. Okay? And I was looking around in the uses of the ablative and amused by what they call the comitative ablative, which is like he marched with 1,000 men. It's almost like this was they're asking, with what force, with what hope for the future? What's the force? What's the power? What's the I'm blanking on the word. That's allowing him to be quiet about these things that everyone else would be shouting to the rooftops. So it's another one example of just how this theme of his moderation, just what a cool cucumber he was, and this and that. So let's go back and let Paul do this whole thing for us. I guess we just had this last part, right? Yeah. At ita petita.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Ita petita paca ac dedita insula, clarus ac magnus haberi agricola, quipa qui ingredienti provinciam, quod tempus alii per ostentationem et officiorum ambitum transigunt, labor et periculum placuisset. Nec agricola prosperitata rerum in vanitatem usus, expeditionem aut victoriam vocabat victus continuissa. Ne lariatis quidem gesta prosecutus est, sed ipsa dissimulatione famae famam auxit, aestimantibus quantus futuri spe tam magna tacuisset.
Okay, very good. Okay. It actually gets considerably easier at this point. It really does. I mean, there's a little thing a little bit later in this passage, but all in all, it gets pretty easy right now. Okay, so Ceterum is like just, for the rest, as for the remainder, and sometimes it's even just but here it just means it's the more general, as to other things, okay, prudens animorum provinciam, okay, so, respectful or concerned with respect to, the hearts and minds of the province. Okay, ceterum animorum provinciae prudens. Okay. Simulque doctus per aliena experimentum. Okay. So, and likewise, having learned per alienta experimenta through other trials, to other experiences, having learned elsewhere, okay, that parum profici armis, that very little was accomplished by arms, okay, ablative of means, by arms, si injuriae sequenter, if insults follow, or if abuses follow, okay, if damages follow. Okay, so aware of all this, prudens et simulque doctus causas bellorum statuit ex caetera. He decided to eliminate the causas bellorum. Okay? Okay, so a se suisque orsus primum domum suam coercit. Okay? So Orsus, beginning with himself and his own slaves, okay, with himself and his own entourage, primum domum suam coercit. First, he brought under control his own household, okay? And then this is a nice little Tacitian thing. Quod plerisque haud minus arduum est quam proriciam regere. Okay? A thing which, for the majority of folks, is hardly less difficult than running a whole province. Okay? Quod plerisque haud minus arduum est quam proriciam regere. Okay? And like I said, this gets pretty straightforward. Nihil per libertos servosque publicae re non studiis privatis nec ex commendatione aut precibus centurionem militisque adire, sed optimum quemque fidissimum putare. So we've got three things here. Okay? So I just have to check one thing. Okay. I was looking for. I wanted there to be an infinitive in the first of these clauses, but they're not. I wanted there to be an infinitive to be parallel with putara and ascira, but Tacitus doesn't do that for us. But okay, so nihil per libertos servosque, and if you were going to supply something, it would be like agere. Okay, so he transacted nothing by means of his freedmen and slaves, i.e., nihil re publicae. Nothing of public matters did he transact by per libertos servosque. Okay. Let's break this up a little more. Nor, on the basis of private recommendations, non studiis privatis nec ex commendatione aut precibus. Okay, so neither Okay, see, the non actually goes with the infinitive. So he did not advance centurions or soldiers by private, because of private favoritisms, nor ex commendatione aut precibus, because of someone was commending that person to him, or through was pleading with him to promote the person. Okay, so here again we get the double determination of what he did not do, and then we get the sed. Sed optimum quemque fidissimum putare. And quemque with the superlative roughly just means every. So and almost here it's almost only the best people did he think to be fidissimum. And here, of course, it can't be most trustworthy, but exceptionally trustworthy. And he only wanted exceptionally trustworthy people. So he was only looking for the best people, and those people he putare fidissimum, to be most trustworthy. Okay? And then now we get, he'll give you that general depiction, and then he'll spell it out. Okay? So, omnia scire non omnia exequi. Okay, now exequi means to punish. I had to look that up. So he made a point of knowing everything so that he didn't have to punish everything. He knew, he kept an eye on everything, and he knew the quality of the people so that he did not have to just follow behind bad appointments and punish everything. Okay? Punish all their misdoings. So that's a nice little, very encapsulated thing. Omnia scire non omnia exequi. Okay? Haris peccatis veniam magni severitatem commodare. And here again, commodare is a simple for complex. So accommodare means to fit. Okay? So to small offenses, he fit or dispensed, forgiveness. But to big peccatis, he dispensed, fitted severity. Okay? Non poena semper sed saepius paenitentia contentus esse. And these ablatives are like the ablative of like the penalty someone pays. So he was content, not always with punishment, but very often, even if just someone said, okay, I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't have done that. Okay? And again, we're getting all these infinitives, this series of infinitives. Officiis et administrationibus potius non peccaturos praeponere. Okay? Rather, he praeponere, and remember, this is our famous pry, he put at the head of, duties and administrative tasks, okay, or rather, on the other hand, he put at the head of those things non peccaturos, people who were not going to go astray at all, okay, future participle, okay. So rather than place at the head of administration, so rather, okay, I kind of blew this, guys. I'm sorry. I apologize. Potius quam. Okay, so he preferred to put at the head of administrative offices those who would not go astray, than to damn them when they had gone astray. Quam damnare, then to punish them cum peccasset, when they had gone astray. Okay? So, Now this gets a little strange, this next thing. Okay, so okay. And again, we're just continuing these historical infinitives. And this last little bit is, I thought, was the kind of strangest thing. Okay, so Moliera, historical infinitive, he softened by an equality of payments. Okay, it's almost like he instituted a flat tax. He softened by an equality of payments the exaction of both tribute and of corn payments. Okay, you know, he didn't. Okay, and Circum Kisis is from Circum Cido, you know, cutting out, having cut out. Okay, and it's almost like you need eis here, because again, it's one of these ablative absolutes where he doesn't give you the noun. Having eliminated, okay, those things which were invented for the sake of gain in quaestum, and for the sake of ungainly profit, okay, those things which are tolerated more gravely, which means they're less tolerated, they're more grievously tolerated than the tribute itself. So he recognizes that even though they'd be happy to pay the tribute if it were just administered in a fair and straightforward manner, but it were these things that were qua reperta in quaestum, the things, and here reperio means to invent. And the N is for the purpose of quaestum, for the purpose of profit, for the purpose of just putting extra money in the official's pocket. Okay, so cutting out those things that are more painful than the tribute itself, the tribute itself, because it had been embedded just for simple gain. Okay, so that's a little tricky. Okay, he has another one of these one-word participles that then forms the antecedent to this clause, which itself is a noun serving as a subject of tolerabunt. Okay, I mean, we could have just gotten rid of this and just said cutting out the things which were less easily were more painfully borne than the tribute itself, i.e., those things that had been invented after the fact just for the sake of the profit of the officials. So that's kind of tricky, okay? And then this one is kind of strange too, because he takes this one very tight sentence to describe what the bad officials were doing to these poor people. So for, and we have this Koge Banter, he switched subject to the British people were forced, what were they forced to do? They were forced to do three things. They were forced to atsidere, to aimere, and to luere. Okay? They were forced to set at closed granary depots per lubrium while they were laughed at and made fun of and abused. Okay? And on top of that, at utro, and on top of that, they were forced to buy the grain. And what this meant was, if they couldn't generate from their own farms the grain that the Romans were asking them to produce, then they'd have to buy it from the Romans right on the docks. And so they'd pay money to the Romans, and then it seems like the Romans wouldn't even ship it, but would just hold on to it. I mean, I didn't read the notes close enough to unpack exactly what the abuses that were going on here, but then this last one, lure repretio, and then they were forced to even pay cash money. So not only are these guys making them buy grain that they don't even get because it just stays with the Romans, but they're making them pay money in addition. So they're paying money and not getting anything in return at all. Okay? So namque per ludubrium accedere clausis horeis et emira ultra fermenta ac lure repretio cogebantur. Okay? And then, so the last thing that he's doing as far as just cleaning up the civil administration, divortia itinerum et longinquitas regionem indecebatur. And I love this. What does that mean? What does that mean? That he divortia itinerum et longinquitas regionem indecebatur. It means he just put up some street signs and he put up some distance signs. He put up some signs at forks of roads. Divortia, you know, that's where the road turns in two directions. Okay? At the forks of roads, he put up signs. And he put up distance signs. Okay, it's 20 more miles to, you know, Cincinnati. You know, these things were indicated. You know, I'm not sure what to do with this passive here. They were indicated. Yeah, I guess it goes with it takes its singular from the longinquitas. Okay? Okay? Ut civitates proximis hibernis in remota et avia deferunt. Donet quod omnibus impromptu erat paucis lucrosum fieret. Okay? This is where my rereading of it kind of, I didn't get much further than this. So let me just remember how this was done, because there was a little. Ut civitates proximis hibernis in remota et avia deferunt. Okay. Donec quod omnibus impromptu erat paucis lucrosum fuerit. Let's see. Donec quod. Okay, I apologize, guys. This is exactly how far I got in the part before I realized I had to go. Okay, so until it was the case that to everyone, impromptu erat. Oh God, I'm dying here. I'm going up in flames, guys. Ut civitas proximis hibernis in remotat area deferat. Donec quod omnibus impromptu erat paucis luctuosum fuerat. One second. Okay, so I'm just going to read the note here so you guys see that there were problems here. So with respect to, and this is from Ogilvy, with the proximis hibernis, he's saying it's usually taken as a concessive ablative absolute. And in that way, it would be taken to mean even though there were permanent quarters for the troops close by. Okay? So that's just that ablative absolute. Okay? So although there were permanent quarters for the troops close by, okay? But he says, but such a use is hard to parallel in Tacitus, and it is easier to regard it as a plain ablative of separation with deferent. Okay, so what is this? They were moved from the nearby ut civitates proximis hibernis in remotat area deferunt. And then the donut quo, they said, tell a service easy to all should become profitable to a few. Oh, I get it. Okay. Tell a service easy to all, i.e., in which there was no need, in which there need have been no difficulty for all the Britons, should become profitable to all. Okay, and that means profitable to a few, the Romans, by bribes received to escape this needless transport. Okay, so at civitates. See, I'm just not sure what the object then is of deferent. Okay. Devortia iterum. Okay. Sorry, guys. Like I said, this is as far as I got. Although the next part gets really easy actually. Checking with the other guys to see about this one. Okay, so omnibus impromptus, an easy matter for all parties concerned, and paucis is the Roman officials. Okay, yeah, no one's really giving me the help I need here. Ut civitates. Okay, so ut civitates in remota et deferunt. Okay, guys, I'm gonna leave this aside until next week when I figure it out, and we probably should just end here. Actually, we've gone a little short, but like I said, I got caught up trying to figure out that earlier bit that was difficult, and I don't want to try to do 20 when I haven't looked at it as well as I should have, and it's gotten late on us. Okay, so let's go back and let Paul read this last bit up until Devortia, and then we'll end it. We'll end it there. So let me go back up to the top of this. Okay, good. So here we go, Paul.
Ceterum animorum provinciae prudens, simulque doctus per aliena experimenta, parem profici armis, si inuriae sequerentur, causas bellorum statuit excedere. A se suisque orsus, primum domum suam coercuit, quod plerisque haud minus arduum est quam provinciam regere. Nihil per liberto servosque publicae rei, non studiis privatis, nec ex commendatione aut precibus, centurionem militesque ad scire, sed optimum quemque fidissimum putare. Omnia scira, non omnia exequi. Parvis peccatis veniam, magnis se veritatem commodare. Nec poena semper, sed saepius penitentia contentus esse. Officiis et administrationibus potius non peccaturos praeponere, quam damnare cum peccasent. Frumenti et tributorum exactionem aequitate munerum molire. Circum quisis, quae in quaestum reperta, ipso tributo gravius tolerabantur. Namque per ludibrium ad sidera clausis horeis et emera ultro frumenta, ac luera pretio cogibantur.
Okay, guys, I cheated it and looked at the translation. And remember, guys, I said I didn't know what was happening with this passive. It's like the minute you have one thing go astray, everything else messes up. So what it is indicabatur. This is actually an impersonal. Okay, there were indicated to these guys even for bringing the grain when they even had to bring the grain. They were made to bring it to depots which were, far off the beaten path and were in long and far off regions, okay, so that, and then here again he's using Civitas to talk about not a city or a place, but actually the people, so that the different peoples had to bring the grain, and see, this is just the fact of him not supplying objects, had to bring the grain to remote and awia, to places that were remote and off the beaten path, even though there were army camps right nearby, okay? And these abusive guys, because see, I thought this was describing what Agricola had done, but Tacitus is continuing to describe the abuses that Agricola corrected, okay? So they had indicated these far-off places for the grain to be dropped off, okay, so that the people had to would bring them to these far-off places, even though there were perfectly good places where they could have dropped them off, proximis Hibernis, okay, until, okay, what happened? Until what was impromptu for everybody. Everybody lived near some type of Roman installation. So what was right at hand for everybody became a very profitable exercise for very few people. Okay? So instead of the people who were running the grain collection saying, oh yeah, just bring it to your local military camp, they created these long away, far away places where they could have their monopoly. And so what had been an easy thing for everybody to do because these camps were nearby, it became, for a few Romans, a very difficult thing. It is so funny. I'm really amused by that experience I just had because I want to make 3 points just for students to realize, okay? Number one, okay, I was forced just because I was forced to go and look at a translation, which I never, ever, ever do. I mean, I force myself, I try to go as long as I can when I'm preparing these sessions. I read it again and again and again. I'll read it 6 or 7 times. And I hold off consulting the translation till the very last minute, as long as I possibly can. Because the more effort you put behind solving something, the more memorable will be the solution. Okay? Whereas if you just have a little trouble and you just say, oh, well, I'll look at my translation, that just goes in your mind. You know, you won't even remember the solution, and you won't most certainly remember the translation when it comes back to you on the test. You know, the struggle that you put in to just going over something again and again is well worth it, and cutting to the translation, that's something you should do at the very last resort. Okay? Now, secondly, I want to point out how I didn't know what to do with this passive, and so I just didn't. I kind of ignored it and thought I could just glide over it. But that was the whole key. The whole key was that he's continuing that this is an imperfect description. No, it was indicated. Payment was indicated. You know, or I should say, you know, long away places, and you know, Dewortia. I guess this must be. I even like to look that up. These things were indicated as the places of drop off. Okay, and then once you go wrong, and you don't know what's going on, and you just continue, then everything else becomes hard. Because I went into a panic and wanted to. You know, I mean, is always problematic. I mean, I'm just sorry. You know, on the one hand, if you just try when you see to go as, you might cut through it like a Gordian knot oftentimes. So as the peoples had to bring it into remote and off the path places, although there were nearby camps, okay, but oftentimes as won't work for you. You know, I mean, as is like a way to just try to cut through the Gordian knot, but oftentimes you just got to go into your grammar and figure out what the hell's going on, okay? And then donec's always an until, And then I just panicked, and I was trying to read the Donec with the quote, okay? But until what for everybody was that, impromptu, okay? And this is the problem with Tacitus. He doesn't give you id. I mean, another one would have given you, what was on hand for everybody, that thing became a profit for a few, okay? Well, Tacitus is hard, but I wanted just to, make the note, to kind of like unpack my own confusion there at the end, and encourage you, to hold off from the translation as long as you can, from consulting a translation. If you see something and you don't know it, that's the hardest thing, is just to own up to it and kind of just like do the work you have to do, whether it's looking up words like divortia itinerary, which I really would like to work up. Divortia, I mean, I just tried to go diverto, turning away, but I'm not even sure what that means really. And key was this impersonal here. Okay, so we're at 9:30, and I think that was a good lesson to end with. This idea that you have to be persistent. Don't panic. Try to stick with your with the text as long as possible before resulting to a translation. And golly gee, I wish it weren't so crazy. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll resume next week, and hopefully get a little bit further. Golly gee, this really does take a lot of time. Okay, everyone have a good week.
You too.
Bye-bye. Okay, guys, so I'm going to cut the thing now. Stop broadcast.